City Centre cinema going really starts round about 1909, 1910 with the custom-built cinemas like the Electric in Sauchiehall Hall Street, and the one that was, I suppose in modern terms, the game changer was the Picture House, which then became the Gaumont and is now the Savoy Centre. And it was a staggering addition to the city cinema landscape. It had a palm court foyer. It had a koi carp pool, and it made going to the cinema an event to rival going to the theatre. So people would actually get dressed up and they would sit quietly in their cinema seats, even though there was no sound from the screen. They suddenly behaved as though they were going to a theatre. So if you like, the city centre rather gentrified cinema going and made it something that was a special occasion, that was a big night out.
It's interesting when you walk around the streets of Glasgow how many buildings you pass that still stand that were actually once cinemas. One of my favourites that you wouldn't give a second glance to as you walk past was the Norwood cinema on St George's Road. It's now a snooker hall. It's a very dull looking building really now. It's a very low facade, it's got just kind of some doors and a plain brick wall above it. But when it opened as a cinema, it was opened by a chap called Albert Pickard, who was quite a cinema magnate, if you like. He was a great showman. It's said that he owned 8 Rolls Royces, one for every day of the week and 2 for Sundays. But my favourite thing about the Norwood was, in order to attract attention to it, when it first opened, there was a scale model of the Forth Railway Bridge stretching across the whole width of the facade, with little model trains that ran backwards and forwards, and it was all lit up at night as well. You really couldn't miss it walking past. It was completely mad and completely Albert Pickard.
I think that everyone went to the cinema on a Saturday morning when I was a kid. We all filed in, took our seats, absolutely packed. There was an MC, which I think that was quite common, and I believe that happened in all ABC minors across the whole of the UK. There'd be competitions, whose birthday was it? You get the opportunity to go up on the stage if it was your birthday. And then the programme, when it started, would be cartoons. And what was most memorable was there was a serial of Flash Gordon, black and white, I think. And you would watch the episode and there was a cliffhanger at the end of it, and you would have to come back next week to find out what happened.
Going to the cinema, yeah, it was more I was a little guy in awe of what was going on. Most cinemas were sort of big, dark, cathedral-type spaces, and I could never figure out how the curtains worked. And it had light going up the curtains, or it had a pattern in the curtain. You could never see the lights. I was like, where's the light coming from? There was something mysterious about it all. And then, of course, when the lights go down, the curtain opens, and then your concentration's on the picture.
The great trick about classic Hollywood filmmaking is that you're not supposed to be aware that you're watching a film. It's a completely immersive experience. And if you look at these old city centre cinemas, the operators took a huge amount of pride in making sure that that illusion was maintained. So the audience never ever saw a blank screen. The lights would go down, the projectionist would turn on the machine, and then the curtains would be opened. So the curtains opened a fraction of a second after the machine was turned on. So it meant that the first thing that the audience saw was the logo for the movie or the title of the movie, and it was like a curtain parting in another world, and you were just drawn completely into this for 2 hours. Then the curtains closed again and the lights came up and the experience was finished.
Well, I suppose as a projectionist, you were the person that were in control of the film itself. You could make or break the film that way. You know, obviously you made sure that all changeovers in those days, films were in 20-minute reels and used to change from one projector to the other. And in the 70s, they started converting all the big cinemas into multi-auditoriums, as they called it, where the balcony or circle became one cinema, and the stalls could become 1 or 2 cinemas that way. And eventually one projectionist was still looking after all that equipment.
What's now the GFT opened as the Cosmo cinema on the 18th of May 1939. It was the largest purpose-built art house cinema outside of London. When it opened, it was a big single screen seating over 1,000 people. You had the balcony upstairs and the stalls downstairs. It was split up in the 1970s to what's now Screen 1, it's basically the original balcony. And Screens 2 and 3 are in what was the original stalls downstairs.
Unfortunately, most of the cinema buildings have gone now that way. You know, they lay derelict for years, but all of a sudden they started pulling them all down and building flats, etc. GFT luckily has been preserved, but unfortunately we've lost most of them, which is a shame.
The Cinema City project is really important for us here at Glasgow Film because we recognise that cinema is really in the blood of everyone in Glasgow. It's that big collective memory that we have.
You have to save a little bit of your heritage and your culture. Cinema going's been a big part of 20th century culture, and it's a big part of Scottish culture too. So it's important to save what's left, or there'll be nothing for the future. All you'll have are photographs on a laptop.